8 symptoms of a bad coolant temperature sensor, and why you should not ignore these signs. Your engine may still start, your car may still drive, but if the coolant temperature sensor goes bad, it can send the wrong temperature signal to the engine computer. And when that happens, the car may start using too much fuel, run poorly, show false temperature readings, or even turn on the check engine light, because this small sensor plays a big role in how the engine manages fuel, cooling, and performance. In this video, I will show you 8 common symptoms of a bad coolant temperature sensor. We will start with the most common signs first, then move into the more serious ones. So before you replace random parts, let's go step by step. Symptom number 1, check engine light. This is one of the most common signs. If the coolant temperature sensor sends incorrect data, the engine computer may detect that something is wrong. And when that happens, the check engine light may come on. Sometimes the issue is the sensor itself. Other times it may be the wiring or connector going to the sensor. But if the warning light appears together with temperature-related symptoms, the coolant temperature sensor should definitely be checked. Symptom number 2, hard starting, especially when the engine is cold. The engine computer uses coolant temperature data to decide how much fuel to add during startup. If the sensor reports the wrong temperature, the engine may get too much fuel or not enough fuel, and that can make cold starts more difficult. The engine may crank longer, start rough, or struggle to start properly. In some cases, it may also start badly when the engine is already warm. So if starting becomes inconsistent, the sensor may be sending bad information. Symptom number 3, poor fuel economy. A bad coolant temperature sensor can easily cause poor fuel economy. If the sensor tells the computer the engine is colder than it really is, the system may keep adding extra fuel. That creates a richer mixture than necessary. And when that happens, fuel usage goes up. So if your mileage suddenly drops without another clear reason, and other temperature-related symptoms appear at the same time, the coolant temperature sensor becomes much more suspicious. Symptom number 4, rough, idle, or poor engine performance. When the engine gets the wrong temperature signal, the air-fuel mixture may not stay balanced. That can lead to rough idle, hesitation, sluggish response, or unstable performance. The car may still run, but it may not feel smooth. Sometimes it feels worse during warm-up. Other times, the problem continues even after the engine is fully warm. This is why a bad coolant temperature sensor can sometimes be confused with fuel, airflow, or ignition problems. Symptom number 5, black smoke from the exhaust or fuel smell. If the sensor causes the engine to run too rich, you may start noticing black smoke from the exhaust or a strong fuel smell. This happens because too much fuel is being sent into the engine compared to what it actually needs. Now, this does not happen in every case, but when it does, it is a strong sign that the engine mixture is not being controlled correctly. And the coolant temperature sensor can absolutely be the reason. Symptom number 6, cooling fan runs all the time or does not come on correctly. On many vehicles, coolant temperature data helps control when the radiator fan turns on and off. If the sensor sends bad temperature readings, the fan may behave strangely. It may run all the time, even when the engine is cold. Or it may fail to come on when the engine gets hot. Both situations are a problem because the cooling system depends on accurate temperature information to work correctly. So if the radiator fan starts acting abnormally, the coolant temperature sensor should be inspected. Symptom number 7, temperature gauge reading wrong or behaving erratically. If your car uses the same sensor or related temperature signal for the gauge, a bad sensor can cause false temperature readings. The gauge may stay too low. It may suddenly jump high. It may move unpredictably, or it may not move normally at all. Now, in some vehicles, the gauge problem could also come from the gauge circuit or another sensor. But if the reading looks wrong along with drivability symptoms, the coolant temperature sensor becomes a strong suspect. Symptom number 8, engine overheating warning or false overheating concern. And finally, one of the most serious symptoms, a bad coolant temperature sensor can sometimes trigger an overheating warning even when the engine is not truly overheating. Other times, it can also contribute to real overheating problems if the cooling fan does not operate correctly. That is why this issue should never be ignored, because even if the sensor is only giving false information, you still need to know whether the engine is actually overheating or not. Now here is the big takeaway. A bad coolant temperature sensor can affect fuel delivery, engine performance, cooling fan operation, temperature readings, and warning lights all at the same time. That is why this small sensor can create a very confusing mix of symptoms. So if you suspect a bad coolant temperature sensor, check the pattern. Is the check engine light on? Is the car hard to start? Has fuel economy dropped? Is the idle rough? Do you smell extra fuel? Is the cooling fan acting strangely? Does the temperature gauge look wrong? If several of those signs show up together, the coolant temperature sensor should definitely be checked. And remember, sometimes the problem is not only the sensor, the connector or wiring may also be damaged, so do not replace parts blindly. So let's quickly recap. A bad coolant temperature sensor may cause a check engine light, hard starting, poor fuel economy, rough idle or poor performance, black smoke or fuel smell, cooling fan problems, wrong temperature gauge readings, and overheating warnings or overheating related confusion. It is a small part, but when it fails, it can affect both engine performance and cooling system behavior. And now I want to hear from you. What symptom did your car show first? Was it hard starting, poor fuel economy, a strange temperature gauge reading, or a check engine light? Comment below with the first sign you noticed, and if enough people mention the same one, I will make the next video on how to test a bad coolant temperature sensor step by step.